Okay, good morning. This is Luis Solis, president of Imaginatik, and I want to welcome you to another of our Thought Leader webinar series here on August 1st, 2012. Just to repeat what you may already know, this is a recorded presentation. There will be a link available to all of you and shipped out to you and all registrants by Monday of next week. Which I believe is the 6th, and you can share that with colleagues or you can share it with your organizations or other peers. In addition, just want to remind you that we like you to ask questions, especially really hard ones, at any time. Do not hold them for the end. You can introduce them to us via the chat bar, the chat area, and punch them in, and myself and my colleague Chris Townsend, we will field these questions and answer them during the show. And with no further ado, we obviously will leave a little bit of time at the end for questions, but we do encourage you to be as active and collaborative as our entire message today reinforces is the right thing to do. Today we're working with you on an overview of the state of innovation based on some survey work we did in May of 2012. And Chris will be handling that portion of it in the middle of this presentation. And I'm going to kick it off with a little discussion on innovation maturity assessments, what it means to you in your individual career, your organizations, and how to do it on the back end of this presentation. To guide you through what we're going to be doing today, specifically, what we will cover is our expertise to be doing this work, where we came from, why we hold ourselves out as people who know what we're doing in this area. Some context of why innovation maturity assessing and mapping is important to you personally in your role, to your leadership and innovation in your companies or organizations. A quick overview of the stages and capabilities, just so that we have the same language. There are many methodologies in the world in terms of innovation maturity assessing. We have distilled ours based on our work over 15 years with clients, and we're applying it with great efficacy for our customers at this time. Chris is going to take us through some of the recent survey results and some very compelling observations of what the data means and what we're going to be doing in the future, including announcing the winner of the iPad, which is one of the survey respondents actually wins an iPad, and we promise to announce that here in August. And finally, I will review for you some of the assessment methodology fundamentals. Of course, we're going to give you a very easy way to reach out to us after this webinar if you wish to have a more direct, fuller discussion about how we might assist you or what your situation is, and we can help you understand the requirements to take advantage of it. First, a little bit on our expertise. For those of you, and we do see a number of our clients online, we also see a number of the organizations who are inquiring of Imaginatik for innovation help. And then we see people that we'd like to get to know better. For those of you who don't know us, Imaginatik is the pioneer in digital idea innovation management dating back 15 years. We've been at this for the longest time of anybody in the category. Over 400 client solutions deployed, so this isn't just current clients, this is actually helping organizations that in their own maturity moved on to other things. And frankly, what makes us very different is that we focus on innovation results, not just the technology. So we're really about consulting, enterprise SaaS software, and the program management that delivers the results that your strategic plan is looking for. And we do this in particular with a consulting methodology that has 3 pillars. I won't read this to you. You can see it yourselves, of course. Let's see here. Let me just confirm our slides moving. Oh my God. Let me ask you, Chris, can you see my slides at this point?
Luis, I still see your title slide.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
So I don't know if you can advance on PowerPoint or.
I'm not. I'm advancing, and it's not showing. So, what would you like me to do?
Why don't I take the slides? I think I should be able to. Let's see if.
Please do it right away.
Okay.
It must be that my. My GoToMeeting froze. Is that possible?
It's possible. Certainly we can still hear you just fine. Okay.
Hang on a second. Oh, I see what happened. Oh.
Can you see my screen?
Well, interestingly, I cannot. But if you just give me the slide number, I will proceed because my Wi-Fi hotspot is frozen where I'm at.
Okay.
So,
It looks like mine is fine.
okay.
So, you're seeing me fine.
Yeah, so let's just recap slide 1, just so everybody knows where we are, and we'll quickly catch up here.
Is that good? I'm on slide 1, the first content slide.
Okay, you're on slide 1. Again, we're going to cover our expertise, a little context around innovation maturity, quick recap of stages and capabilities. Chris will review the survey results, including, Chris, next hit here, the iPad award, and finally give you a way to understand how you might engage with our assessment methodology going forward in the future. Next, please.
Okay, slide 2.
Yeah. Again, just a little bit about our expertise. Some of you know us very well, some less well. We're a pioneer of idea innovation management in the virtual digital world since 1997, 15 years. Gives us a tremendous amount of depth and expertise on how to make innovation happen, not just the technology, SaaS, software side, which is what most folks focus on in our category, but how to deliver the innovation results that are measurable, that sustain outcomes and a culture. And we do this by means of a combined consulting, software, and program management approach, including having some of our employees and consultants on site at your organization as needed. Next, please.
Okay, slide 3.
Yeah, so in terms of sustainable innovation, the way we assist your organizations to achieve this, and some of this applies to you as individuals, some of it to teams, is through a 3-pillar approach of charting the course of innovation, which is a lot of work around team alignment, organization alignment, around a vision and a map. Number 2 is discovering and activating new ideas and breakthrough strategies. And this is the work of actually moving ideas from an idea management stage to fully flushed possible concepts, papers, products that can be taken to market, even assisting on that process as is possible. And finally, building the innovation muscle and fiber to have a true innovation discipline at your organization with the techniques you see in the right-hand column. Today's presentation on innovation maturity assessment really reinforces the charting the course for innovation discipline of our consulting. And let's move on to that next step.
Okay, slide 4.
Here's who helps you when you come to Imaginatik, work on innovation maturity. It's my colleague Elisa O'Donnell, a veteran innovation consultant based in Boston, but as with myself and Jeff, sort of ubiquitously available by plane. Jeff, some of you know, is based in our London office and assists us with all of the EMEA area, although his wisdom and knowledge over 20 plus years applies to all of our North American clients as well. And myself, I'm president of North America and have had a over 25-year record of working on transformation, enterprise supply chain, and innovation. Next slide, please.
Slide 5.
Yeah, so let's set the table here. Let's set the context of what this is all about for you individually and for your organizations. It isn't just having a strategy. In fact, even in our survey results, you will see, and I won't steal Chris's thunder, strategy is something that many organizations feel they have a competency in innovation. Whether that is at the right level or depth is for you to assess. But it's not just knowing where you're going to go. It's also where are you today. And we find many organizations come to us and are having great difficulty knowing their current state of innovation such that they can't quite get to the next step. And we're going to skip the next slide, Chris, because you don't have the video on your laptop. Continue.
Okay, slide 7.
So what we stress is that this is a personal mindset opportunity. For every one of you on the line today, this isn't about management, although you are members of management, many of you. This isn't about my company, call it company X, Y, or Z. It's really about your personal desire and your innovation team's desire to grab an imperative, a substantial imperative, to make innovation more effective, widespread, sustainable, to drive that change to get there, and to make it a journey. It's a multi-year journey. I think some of our organizational clients who are at the highest levels of excellence in innovation have been at this 10, 12, 13 years. A few of them that have started 1 or 2 years ago, predictably, are at a less mature level of assessment. What I want to just sort of help you with is this is as much as anything about your personal mastery, your personal willingness to go from the known, what is the known areas of innovation and of capability, to the unknown, including the areas that you're going to be seeing around culture, process, and organization that are going to push your organization to new places that frankly create fear and risk, but that's how you finally get back to the beginning. And I just borrow from Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, because in fact, my belief and our belief is this is about individual mastery as much as it is organizational mastery. Those of you who are leading innovation know this to be true. Those of you who will be leading innovation will learn this as you proceed. Next slide, please.
Slide 8.
Slide 8. Without reading all of these points, we will again stress to you that change, driving change toward a more complete innovation capability, is much easier with a systematic roadmap. So what our innovation maturity assessment delivers to you is not only an understanding of where you are, but how you get to the next level and the next 2 levels within 6, 12, 18, 24 months. That kind of roadmap that is co-created with you, where it is collaborated with you and embraced by management, if not the board of directors and the executive committee, that's what makes enterprise innovation happen. A single heroic event, a single product launch, a single business model change in and of itself isn't sufficient. That's not sustainability. Next, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so why innovation maturity mapping at all? It's interesting, most of us, and we know this from the work that many of you do on right brain thinking, most of us really can understand things much better visually. And what we do is we help you understand visually where your organization's current capability is across 5 dimensions of strategy, process, resources, organization, and culture. Again, you could be using 7 today or 8, 3 or 4. We distilled it to these 5. And of course, they all overlap and weave and intertwine. But what we do with them is to help you essentially embrace a holistic organization view of innovation with specific time horizons and small steps that you move forward in these 5 areas instead of trying to tackle the amorphous challenge of innovation. At the end of the day, it means crisper decision making and action taking. And as all of us know on this line, that's what leads to the results we want. Chris?
Okay.
Yeah, and why now? The only point I will mention is across all of the work we do, and we're very blessed to have a fantastic roster of clients, global organizations who introduce us to others, these webinars where we meet people, conferences, we find that fewer than a quarter of the organizations we interface with have an effective innovation system. And I don't mean software system, I mean ecosystem, platform, a method to really thrive in innovation and keep moving up the ladder of innovation maturity. That means there's a lot of room to leverage people. And the point I want to leave with you today, this isn't about just organizational success. It isn't about just the top line, bottom line, middle line. It's about your careers. This is really about even the innovation leader's career, how to extend that career half-life, how to make sure that your own career progresses is to understand the fundamentals of how to be a change agent and enterprise leader. So I want to underscore this. This is not academic or just corporate. This is about your personal life, your career, and advancement. Chris?
Okay.
So at this point, what we're going to do is rotate, and Chris is going to share with you the exciting outcomes of our survey work, and then I'm going to come back and share with you in greater depth the innovation maturity assessment and how you can get started right away. Chris, all yours.
All right, thank you, Luis. My pleasure to be here today. I think a lot of you are pretty anxious to see some of the results we've gotten from the survey. So let's dive into it. Those of you who are at the front end of Innovation Conference back in May may remember we may have noticed we were handing out these cards you see here on the right-hand side. and thus began our Imaginatik's 2012 Innovation Maturity Survey. We've also done a lot of responses online to help fill out the respondent set. I think it's important to say up front kind of why we did this. Luis touched on a bunch of this. You know, we have more than 15 years of experience delivering innovation to major clients, and we see certain themes come up over and over and over again. And this kind of holistic view, even if many of us know this through our own experience or anecdotally, or we've read things here and there about the importance of culture or the importance of strategy and so on, being able to bring it transparency and have it see the light of day, where we can all talk about maturity and what it means and how it drives innovation success, it is a really important step forward, I think, both for us and for everyone out there. So this is the first time we've run this survey. Like I said, it goes on a lot of our experience over the past 15 years. We have some of these practices very, very well refined and understand how they work together. And so this is really like peeling the first layer of the onion towards really driving innovation at an organization. So if we look at the major takeaways we have from the survey, I think the first thing we can say is that there was a broad range of respondents, and through some initial follow-up after the actual survey was collected, it's very clear there's a lot of interest here. We were really surprised and happy to get a lot of really high-quality responses from folks across, like I said, a range of industries. And you know, there's some good takeaways on a first pass we can discern from the data we collected. I would emphasize again, we're looking at the very top level of innovation maturity. It's just a couple of questions. Those of you who fill the survey out know this. Very top level look at some major buckets of what really matters. We also have seen some things that are interesting, although not particularly surprising to us, and that is that there's a lot of divergence in opinion about what these things really mean. So we would have, in a couple of cases, several respondents at the same company who gave very divergent views of what their maturity level was as they perceived it to be. And this is, in our experience, not uncommon. You know, whether your strategy is good or not, or whether you have a robust process in place, very much depends upon perspective and the experience of knowing whether it's worked over the past number of years. And oftentimes, especially if you're relatively new to developing an innovation program, you know, this is something that's still a bit conjecture. And you know, again, this is why the really focusing on innovation maturity, being able to benchmark, being able to objectively and realistically assess where there are strengths and where there are gaps is really meaningful. The survey followed a format where we asked every question on a scale of 1 to 5. So for any of these dimensions, have you not yet started at all, or are you very, very advanced in the respondent's opinion? And so those ratings on a scale of 1 to 5 correspond to our own methodology from stage 1, which is ignored as an innovation capability, all the way to stage 5, which is continuous and optimized and performing at an industry leadership level. You can see a couple examples just based on our own experience over the years of companies that we've seen and where they fall into the spectrum of advancement. It's worth noting that from everything we know, most companies today are still at stage 1. This is the norm. Stage 2 is actually relatively advanced compared to many of your peers within your industry and elsewhere. And you can see on the right-hand side there, if you go along through the progression, just getting to stage 2 already is a big step forward. You're already having innovation consistently appearing in pockets throughout the enterprise. As you go to stage 3, it begins to become more systematic across the board. Stage 4, it becomes more embedded into the culture. You develop norms and standard practices. And in stage 5, you're really at the top of your game and leading almost everyone else in your ability to drive innovation proactively and consistently. So we look at these stages 1 through 5, both on each specific dimension, and then especially meaningfully, we take that all and aggregate it for overall scores in the 5 areas and overall for your firm. Here, on a broad brush, are the 5 major level scores for all respondents in the survey. It's actually quite encouraging. We see that, for the most part, the companies out there that responded tended to be about a 3, which is, again, in our experience, quite advanced in terms of innovation capability. There's a lot of detail hidden underneath this, and we'll get in a little bit more about some takeaways from this. But overall, it does appear that innovation is something that the respondents are actively working on, and really seem to be driving forward. We do find, as I said in the last slide, most organizations really are at a stage 1, and so there's a couple things likely going on here, one of which is those folks who responded to the survey are more keyed into innovation than others. So, this level of 3 at systematized is probably a bit inflated because of self-selection of who responded. And also, we tend to find that those who really care about these topics tend to be the ones that will have the most optimistic viewpoint for a variety of reasons, and we'll come back to this a bit later. However, this is a good starting point for starting to dive into some of the patterns where it gets more interesting. So the way we analyzed the results was looking at those people who rated 4 or 5, as in very or extremely advanced in their maturity across each question, each dimension. So what you see here are the highest scoring ones. Nearly half of those respondents said that their company has a regular innovation planning cycle, which is great. Obviously, this is one of the keys towards really making innovation sustainable is institutionalizing it and formalizing it in some kind of regular planning activity to coordinate and drive. Right behind were both the tie into strategy and high-level priorities for the firm, and some degree of budget commitment from the company to actually fund innovation programs. All this is really good to see. The most interesting thing we take from this is that these are standard business management practices. Anytime that your company wants to take something seriously, like innovation as a discipline, it's a natural rhythm for almost all of us on the line to create a regular planning cycle, to start to think about how it connects to strategy, especially for something relatively broad and broadly important like innovation, and to, of course, give it some funding to help it grow. So no real surprise here that for those of us that are interested in innovation and trying to make it a really persistent capability and competence, that these are natural first steps. The other side of the big takeaways from the survey was the low end of the scale. So these are the 3 lowest scores we saw in the survey across the board, and they also clustered around a certain set of areas which are quite a bit distinct, largely around culture and people and organization. What we often characterize when we work with clients as the softer stuff, but also the really hard stuff, because it's not so easy as setting a strategic agenda and then pushing it out. Getting the norms right, allowing time and space to innovate, being comfortable encouraging people to take risks and fail early and often. We know these are crucial for innovation to thrive. You may have innovation in smaller pockets without them, so you might be able to get to a stage 2 beyond the initial baseline. But really achieving greater maturity doesn't happen without some focus on the people and the culture and a lot of the stuff that drives implicit actions and beliefs and behaviors. So there's clearly still quite a ways to go here, and I think again, this is no great surprise to us. In working with clients over the years, we've seen these as both the harder ones and the ones that take longer. They're a little bit more out of traditional planning and management, and KPIs and even MBOs. And so I think anyone that has taken the survey or sees this in their own organization, this is for a lot of us a big area to try and improve. We do have a couple questions, so I'm going to stop for a second.
I think, Chris, we have a question from Claire Bond, and it's not so much a question, it's a statement. I think it's a fascinating one around failure learning. Literally, to what extent? And we just ask you to just ask yourselves how much your organizations permit diagnosis and learning from failures, not just to not repeat the failure, but to find the elements of that failure that could lead to better results, breakthrough results, better innovation. Generally, we find failure is taboo at most organizations, but when we're working with organizations seeking to improve themselves a lot, that is a good midterm task, is to begin to talk about failure. We have clients who even celebrate and reward failure, failures that lead to new products and new innovation. So Claire, great point. And I think another statement or question is do you have baselines? Do you have any sense of generally growing trends? I mean, I think our research, Chris, this is year one of what we're doing, and Chris is obviously, as a former Forrester thought leader, will be doing a lot more of this. We don't have baselines. What we do see generally, though, is more of the organizations we work with and more of them that are coming to ask for help from Imaginatik have more resources in innovation, have a little bit more structure and more processes, and this certainly suggests greater investment, greater commitment. So it would not surprise me that over the next 5 years, these trends will trend up in many categories simply because of the focus level, the results being garnered, and the investments. So keep the questions coming by all means.
Yeah, this is going to be a great thing to track as we go forward. It's been really encouraging for us to see the level of interest in surfacing some of these trends. We really do plan to continue to adjust these things as we go along. Keep seeing how the state of innovation maturity generally is progressing. I think qualitatively from our work, these do fit with what we've seen over the years. Although the level of interest and attention, even if not some of the follow through yet on a lot of these metrics, has grown. And so obviously first the will and intention to generate a culture of innovation, build that up from the ground, establish the right metrics and process and strategy and governance comes, and then the follow through of really making it happen takes a certain amount of time. And I think the more of all of you that are active in pushing this forward, the more we'll see these numbers start to go up as we go through the next couple of years, as the dedicated focus and intention starts to turn into results. Moving along, this is a relatively brief survey. We asked, I think, 18 or 19 questions on 5 different factors. We meant it to be brief. We didn't want to go overboard on the first time. The idea is to start really socializing a lot of what we believe to be innovation maturity and its current level of advancement out there in the world, making sure that we're all having a good dialogue about what it really means. How far along are we all really? And making sure that we all have a shared sense of how to improve. We do think there's a bit of bias in places in the survey, as I mentioned earlier, especially all those of you who answered. Many of you are responsible for driving innovation, and obviously the general trend is that this tends to inflate scores a little bit, but we do think, at least in terms of patterns, a lot of the data do make sense. In our work, we do find that when we carry out a survey to begin analyzing the state of innovation maturity, often the qualitative side, when we sit down with people and talk in more depth, begins to uncover a lot of hidden factors and truths that really require a longer conversation to go through. What makes the most sense for a planning rhythm? What makes the most sense for tolerating risk and failure in a culture? How do you set up the right process? And the nuanced picture based on all the work and research we do, either with one client or in trying to analyze broadly, really works best at both levels. So just to emphasize, a lot of the findings we have here are just from the responses to the survey without a lot of qualitative follow-up yet. I think this is a big area for us to work on in the future to try and create a more nuanced picture to share with all you folks.
Yeah. Chris, before we go on to your next slide, let me just comment on a couple of questions. There's a string of them from Gunnar Oskarsson. Gunnar, our methodology explicitly measures innovation time, available time, idle time, in two different areas, culture and also organization. We actually hone in on that quite a bit. Again, in this sample survey, it was a little more difficult because it was only a small subset of our many questions in our proprietary survey. But we absolutely zone in on that because it is a very important issue, and one that, interestingly, is controversial. You can get on two sides of it. One is why be fake and almost false about creating innovation time, and the other is, as we know, if we don't make time for the important stuff in our life, then we spend all of our time on the urgent stuff in our life. So there's different ways to think about this and look at it. In general, just so that all of you know, the sample of the companies were generally organizations with more than 1,000, if not 2,000 employees. These are large organizations. They are not by any means, I mean, they would be equivalent to the largest 1,000 in the world. And someone mentioned, I think John Holmes, I thought the score was high if the score was across the board. I think the scores we think were high for this small sample, partly because, and I'm going to answer another question when we start the innovation maturity stuff, partly because of who answered the survey. Imagine Michael Phelps being asked, do you want to rate yourself on, are you a good swimmer, average swimmer, bad swimmer? I think Michael's self-rating would probably, even if he's humble, would say, I'm a pretty darn good swimmer. Most of the respondents were responsible for some aspect of innovation. We've actually found broader surveys when you do the front line, the middle management who are not doing innovation all the time, gives you a very different perspective at an organization than simply those few people who are most involved in the innovation function itself. We will respond to a couple more questions like Dick Lee's in a moment. Chris, let me turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Luis. Another point to consider is that if your company has begun to improve on some aspects of innovation, the perception of how far you've come can seem monumental, just because from where you started, basic changes in moving up your innovation maturity can seem like a huge step forward, and sometimes that can lead to inflation of scores based on what we've seen across the board as sort of a norm. Okay. Anyway, so what we want to do now is give some thanks. This was a big step forward, we believe, in really looking at innovation and what it means. Obviously, it's the beginning of something we want to continue going forward. And we're really grateful to all those who did respond to the survey, because it's given us all a first kind of public window into where we all stand today. And so with that, we did promise an iPad as the giveaway for the survey. I'd like to congratulate Belinda Drake, who I believe is on the line today. Belinda, congratulations. We'll be sending that to you shortly. Expect some outreach from us right away. And thanks to you and everyone else who responded and participated. We feel this is the beginning of great things to come, and we hope that all of you do stay in the conversation, and we'll keep talking about what maturity really means for innovation, and how you can all do even better for yourselves personally and for your organizations in the future. And with that, that's a wrap of our major findings from the survey. Happy to take any questions at the end, or if anyone wants to follow up later to talk more about what we did and what we've got planned. Would love to do that. And Luis, I'll turn it back over to you to talk a little bit more about our work.
Thank you very much. So let's dive into the assessment itself. Let me first go to the first slide, Chris. One question I often get from a manager level, and some of you on this line are managers, some of you are in different parts of the organization, and I will admit to you that one of your instincts is to say, why would I ever engage in an innovation maturity assessment? It might show weakness. It might show areas that we're not strong in. As you click through these levels, as you see this non-linear progression, Chris, just clicking through up to the level 5, you might say, what if the results show we're only a level 2 and my manager or CEO thought we're a level 4? Let's recall, innovation, and there's several on you who are great practitioners and coaches like Dick Lee, yourself, it takes years, it takes coordination, it's a system. And without a systematic view of the entire organization, sometimes outside elements, your board, your vendors, customers, you will not become excellent. And so there is some risk taking. That's why I said this is really about your own personal mastery, your own willingness to take some risks to say, you know what, I think we can be better, better aligned, get more resources, and make more progress if we expose the truth of where we are. So I wanted to hit that first, and in particular to one question by Matthew Reedy. Probably the hardest thing we find to get organizations to do is to actually bake innovation into job descriptions, and in particular, those of senior leadership. It's really hard. I mean, that's where the line is drawn. And if you go the next level of tying compensation bonuses in part to innovation, that's almost heresy or controversial. Now, innovation leaders and agile, sprinters, absolutely they begin to do that, and it's hard to do it everywhere. But building innovation into job descriptions, specific measurable actions like mentoring, like self-education, self-advocacy, development, coaching and training, these are the ways to really embed it in the organization for the long term. Next step, please. Oh, by the way, I want to comment one thing on Dick Lee's comments. Dick Lee asks a very good point. Do companies always improve, or can they drop off? 30% to 40% of Imaginatik's customers that we're working with, and we won't disclose by name, are coming back to reboot innovation, realign it, restart. They had a good project, they had a good mission at some point, either change of sponsors, change of market conditions, competition, something resulted in a loss of focus on innovation. Perhaps it was outstanding earnings. It was success for 2-3 years and innovation fell off. So positively, we would say innovation maturity is earned and must be sustained and maintained, and absolutely, it's not like you stay there. You have to keep working on it, and that's very difficult for organizations. It's done by recycling people, refreshing your structure, refreshing your processes. Next slide, please. Okay. I'm just going to quickly cover the 5 levels and just isolate the few points that really stand out to us. And by the way we do this is in-person interviews and an extensive virtual web survey. We have probably between 5 to 15 questions, closer to 15 for each, that helps us probe, gauge, measure. The big deal about ignored is not that the company's not doing well. In fact, the organization, even as a nonprofit, could be doing extremely well, and perhaps it's all on operational execution and current plan. There is limited desire to go new places, and there might not even be too much focus on the external trends at the moment. So it doesn't mean it's a bad organization. It could be quite successful. The big deal with Initiated is that there now is pockets and ad hoc innovation, and innovation is a discussion item. Some level of recognition is given, a little uncoordinated, and that's what you see at that level of Initiated, but it's getting a start. Move on to Systematize. The real big deal is that leadership is fully endorsing experiments and projects with key processes having been defined. There are some metrics, KPIs. There is now an idea management front end of innovation capability, and perhaps some notion of portfolio management. It isn't nearly as evolved as it might otherwise be, but because that happens at levels 4 and 5. Level 4, senior leadership ownership, now is at a different level. It's aligned with corporate strategy, so that's a big difference between 3 and 4. We often find with our clients, innovation is not part of the corporate strategy. It's one team, it's one department, it's one function, but it's still not part of the strategy. That's the big level with 4. And when that happens, you get widespread innovation practices. The portfolio management now is more developed, and portfolio management positively goes back to Claire's question about how do you learn and how do you stop doing stuff. Without portfolio management, it's very hard to know how to stop things. Too many things stay in the pipeline, consume dollars, and most importantly, consume human resource. That's the danger of not having portfolio management. Also, level 4, much more training in creativity, in development thinking, in collaborative practices. And by this point, there is an outreach to vendors, customers, and experts by means of open innovation practices. And level 5, which frankly, we all aspire to be the very best, but the Olympics remind us that some of these squads are very small. I think the aspiration is a fabulous one. This is where leaders being engaged and measuring themselves on innovation happens. A KPI dashboard is set up. There are sometimes innovation centers of excellence to both pursue innovation but learn from it and disseminate it. And we think the funding issue is something that's very, very, very significant. The funding is no longer totally discretionary. The funding is no longer borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. There's actual planning in the annual cycle for everything from incremental to strategic to venture funds for breakthrough. Okay, next slide. By the way, great question from Bob Shepigrell. Have you collected and published lessons learned from your clients who are at each stage of maturity? The answer is no. However, interesting, you should ask Chris and myself, and perhaps with some of our other gurus at the firm. We'll be publishing a white paper. We'll go ahead and say certainly by September. It should come out in August, where we're going to begin. We won't disclose brands always unless a company has permitted that, but we're going to begin to reveal both in terms of size and industry maturity in companies some of the lessons that we're able to share, and they are really fascinating. Let's see. And yes, the CEO of P&G has promised to work on discontinuous innovations at P&G. Their system is mature. You know, I think P&G is such a great case study. I will tell you that they continue, if they have one attribute that all of us should mimic in our lives, our careers, not just work, it's curiosity. Without mentioning in what context, we have I mean, at this point, at their level of maturity, this organization came to us to ask for assistance on a very specific area of discovery, is all I'll mention. And they continue to look for breakthrough, curious new ways to keep pushing that envelope out. That's a terrific habit that all of us should have as an organization and as people ourselves. Again, the 5 dimensions or capabilities we measure and then we discuss in a collaborative co-creation way with our clients are these 5. Strategy, process, resources, organization, culture. We often get asked, oh, but come on, is it really 5? Isn't it 50? Isn't it 20? Isn't it 3? The reality is all of these are incredibly intertwined. The 5, though, do help in terms of teams, collaboration, and ownership to break innovation down into bite-sized chunks. So indeed, some of the resources items overlap in the culture, some of culture's organization, but we have found our method helps our clients take steps and plan out the future so that action begins to happen. Next slide, please.
Okay.
So what is this methodology? Again, as I mentioned, there are fabulous other firms doing this. The difference with us is this is coming from our current and prior work. It also makes available the Power of Innovation Central as an enterprise platform, and then we use virtual other tools, and it's very collaborative as opposed to being just digitally driven. This is a lot of workshops. There is an align, a current level, and a roadmap phase. At its fullest, it's about a 10 to 12-week process. We do have clients who come to us, however, and say, you know what, we just really need to start at the executive team with a current level assessment. Just start with current level, and let's try to do virtual 20 to 50 surveys, some interviews, because if we can get the current level, then we can move backwards to alignment. And so we do offer 2 methods. One is the complete innovation maturity assessment, and another is just the current level snapshot. We are not able to do roadmap without current level, and the alignment work can also be done separately, but that's just really up to you. So you can see kind of what's involved in these. Next step, please. Mm-hmm. Yes, and John Holmes, you got it very much. I see that you're commenting on the scores. It's very much a function of the scores rate with the maturity levels, and I think if nothing else, the importance of putting metrics in the areas is that it provides an objective, robust way to have a conversation, and isn't innovation about conversation. It's about teams, people, and conversation. So the deliverables that are part of our assessment are workshops. The workshops are very important, whether they're 4-hour, 8-hour intensives. It's the interviews and surveys, both. It isn't just a survey, but the in-depth interviews. The discussion with management and the mid-level management on current levels and the implications and what they believe can change and by how much, how soon, because we always show them what the next 2 levels would imply of actions to take and kind of what they wish for. And finally, the roadmap recommendations and the detailed planning by month, by quarter, including a snapshot of the investments to be made. What are the investments in people, in process, in technology, to actually pull off the desired next stage of innovation. Next piece, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. This is something I really want to stress, because we don't always work with organizations who come to ask us, and it's usually right here for this reason. We are talented, as all of you are on the line. We're not magicians. We can't do this without serious commitment from the organization. So we often stress that there must be an executive commitment, if not a committee, who's willing to undertake the assessment. This has got to be for real. It does take a fair amount of engagement and time. We always require a capable program manager who we will interface with, a lot of information sharing, and candidly, a willingness to do something with all this. This is very powerful technology and work and information, and it's only worth it if truly folks are able to really put this to work. So we do stress this up front, and I can tell you some organizations say, wow, we just kind of thought we would do this as a benchmark, and we think it's probably a lot of money for just a benchmark, but more importantly, it's an investment of time that may not be best spent doing this. Question from Dree Jenkins: what guidance do you have for corporations to encourage leadership risk-taking and provide dedicated time to employees? I'll give you one really great piece of guidance. We did it as kids, and the more we think as children and kids, the more we're going to be successful as executives and leaders. I don't know about you, but my favorite time every quarter of grammar school was going on a field trip. Field trips opened my eyes to things that books and the chalkboard and home play didn't. I think one of the most powerful ways is to go visit 2 or 3 companies. Have executives and leaders go visit organizations that have taken risks beyond their normal levels, that have provided time to employees. This is part of our work in innovation management. We literally organize learning tours. And the reason is, most of us, especially as we get older, we learn by seeing and doing, not by being told. So I leave that for you, Dree. That's often a very powerful way, is for folks to go firsthand, see it. I can tell you it's transformative. Folks come back and say, wow, I don't need any more data. I've seen what's possible at companies that I didn't think we could mimic. So give that a thought. Last slide here.
Okay.
Yeah, so in summary, we have seen it tried many, many ways, and we have become great advocates of innovation maturity mapping and assessing because it provides a path to change. And many organizations lack that roadmap. Many individuals alone can't do it without an overall snapshot. We've been told it's simple to understand, it drives consensus, and it helped us make decisions. That's the key, right, to going to new places, whether it's our personal life or organizational life. And we really break it up into levels instead of sort of, it's easy to read Clayton's latest book and say, oh my God, I'm so far behind, I'm not disruptive. Well, guess what? All breakthrough products are not even disruptive. And all innovation doesn't have to be breakthrough or disruptive. There are many types of innovation that can lead to employee retention, satisfaction, customer retention, and growth, without necessarily some of the most advanced practices. That's why we help to guide you to your next level of innovation capability this way. Next slide, please.
Okay.
We have a couple more questions here before we cover this. Do you have any suggestion to bring in belief and confidence in each employee's ability to create. After all, each of us are born creative. Ramesh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't have the numbers. One of my colleagues, Elisa, quotes statistics and research that she's done, and it's actually scary that, in fact, you know, at 3 years old, and you may have seen this, a test, a sort of creativity innovation test will show that 90% of all children, 95, are creative and innovative, and at 8 years old, that number's down to 50%. And at 15-year-old, the number's down to 20, and by the time we're adults, it's 2% of us think we're creative. And what's happened? We're the same people who were creative geniuses at 3. Well, I think without going into it, Daniel Pink speaks to it, many people do. We get focused on execution and the real basic and mundanes and the rules of what we can do and can't. We do something called developmental thinking, Ramesh, and Elise is a leader of our practice in this area, to reacquire childlike curiosity. It works. We do it with executive teams, leaders, management. It's not just for innovation, it's really for any problem solving, any opportunity development. But that's crucial. It's to reacquire what you already had. It means kind of pull away the blinders. Pull away the blinders. Let's see, information technology, and then we'll hit your point, Leanna Carey. Information technology seems to be called on to innovate, to change internal processes. But since it is internal and not product focused, so innovation methods are not applied or may not be applied. Any suggestions on internal innovations? We'd have to learn that a little bit more. And James, I would say, please send Chris a note. We'd gladly chat with you more about that today. By the way, if any of you want to have extended discussions from today, please send chris.townsend@imaginatik.com a note. We will gladly speak with you today, tomorrow, the next day, expound on this. We are here to really share our approach, and if it's right, to engage with you at some level. We're going to do two things. First, cover the special offers, and then cover real quickly for Leanne's benefits, slide 26. Again, our Innovation Maturity Assessment white paper with some benchmarking data, September 2012, coming very soon. Again, if all you think might be helpful is a current innovation stage assessment with your senior management team and yourselves, let us know. That is a 2 to 3 week total project. It's pretty short, with a 4-hour on-site workshop to achieve consensus on what to do next. What are the learnings that were not either evident or that have to be admitted to, and what are some of the issues that are now pressing, or the full innovation maturity assessment roadmap. For all of you on this line, and this is a promotion only for those of you who actually made it today, and I think when we send out the link, Chris will resend out this slide, we're offering a 10% valuable sort of loyalty credit for any of you who want to engage with us in the coming month or two. Chris, someone asked to see slide 26 again, please.
Okay, 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the what's required of you. By the way, I can tell you I have been doing enterprise-wide transformation work for longer than I should admit, and I enjoy it, and I can tell you I wish I had known, understood this as well 5 years ago or even 10 that I do today. We are so adamant in trying to test management, leadership's resolve to change and do something, or my friend like Dick Lee on the line will tell you nothing's gonna happen. It's just no matter, I mean, it will sit on the shelf, it will be wasted effort, and frankly, what's interesting is the most disappointed people are the front line and the managers who say, gosh, I thought this time we were really going to change. I thought something was going to be different. And sometimes it just isn't. What I would say to you folks, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to share our innovation maturity research and assessment story with you. We are here to help you. Chris, if you'll scoot on to page 28, just so people have your email again. Please let Chris know if you'd like to talk more. We are sharing selected slides. Reach out to Chris if you're interested. Let him know if there's a particular slide. We probably will not send out the entire deck. We'll send out portions of it. Some of it is somewhat proprietary, but we're available to discuss any of this with you right away. Thank you very much. Chris, I want to thank you for your help and the fine work you do for us at Imaginatik, and also our webinar sort of digital broadcasting expert, Brian Mahoney, who is behind the scenes. And I apologize that my Wi-Fi failed us and we had a little glitch in the first few minutes, but thank you very much. Tell friends about us and do pass along the webinar link